What if everything you thought you knew about Moses was wrong? What if the voice that thundered from the burning bush, the voice that shaped a nation and changed the course of history, was not the voice of the true God at all? Imagine for a moment that the greatest revelation ever recorded was, in fact, a cosmic riddle, one whose answer has been buried beneath centuries of tradition, fear, and silence. The desert wind howls across the ancient sands of Sinai, carrying with it stories older than the stones. Here, in this landscape of shadows and light, a solitary figure approaches a bush ablaze with fire that does not consume. Moses, shepherd and exile, drawn by a sight that defies the laws of nature. He is not a king, not yet a prophet, just a man with a past heavy as the mountains, searching for meaning in the wilderness. But what is this fire really? And who is the voice that calls to him from the flames? The familiar story tells us it is Yahweh, the Lord God of Israel, revealing himself in glory and power. Yet the Gnostic tradition whispers a different tale, a tale that begins not with certainty but with doubt. For the Gnostics, the burning bush is not a simple miracle. It is a symbol, a cipher, a gateway to a deeper mystery. In the hidden teachings of the Gnostics, the world is not ruled by a single benevolent deity, but by layers of spiritual beings, some luminous, others flawed and blind. At the heart of their cosmology stands the demiurge, a creator god who is powerful, yes, but also ignorant, even arrogant. He believes himself to be the only God, declaring, "I am the Lord, and there is none beside me." But above him, beyond him, there is another reality, the realm of the true, unknowable God, the source of all light and wisdom, hidden from the world of flesh and stone. So when Moses hears the voice from the bush, who is he really encountering? Is it the supreme God of all, or is it the demiurge, the architect of this imperfect world, mistaking his own echo for the voice of eternity? The question is not just academic, it is a spiritual earthquake, shaking the very foundations of faith. If the God of Moses is not the highest God, then what does that mean for the commandments, the covenant, the Exodus itself? The Gnostic texts, long buried and forbidden, offer tantalizing clues. In the Apocryphon of John, a secret gospel hidden for centuries, we find a story of a creator who fashions the world in ignorance, cut off from the fullness of divinity. He is a craftsman, not a king, a jailer, not a liberator. His voice is thunderous, commanding, but it is not the voice of ultimate truth. For the Gnostics, the true God is silent, ineffable, beyond all names and forms. Only in the depths of the soul, in the quiet places beyond words, can this God be known. Yet Moses, standing before the burning bush, does not know this. He is caught in a drama that is both cosmic and personal. The voice calls him by name, commands him to remove his sandals to stand on holy ground. It speaks of suffering, of liberation, of a promised land. But beneath the promises lies a challenge. Will Moses accept the voice at face value, or will he question, seek, and wrestle with the mystery? The Gnostic perspective does not dismiss Moses as a fool or a fraud. Instead, it sees him as a seeker, a man torn between worlds. He is a bridge between the visible and the invisible, the known and the unknown. His encounter with the burning bush is not just a moment of revelation. It is a test, a crossroads, a riddle posed by the universe itself. And so, the story begins, not with certainty, but with wonder and doubt. The desert is full of secrets, and the fire that burns without consuming is a sign that nothing is as it seems. The voice that speaks may be powerful, but is it wise? The ground may be holy, but whose holiness does it bear? The journey of Moses is the journey of every soul, to discern the true from the false, the light from the shadow, the voice of the jailer from the whisper of freedom. As we follow Moses deeper into the wilderness, the questions only multiply. What is the nature of the God who calls? What is the meaning of liberation if the liberator is himself bound by ignorance? And what hidden truths lie waiting to be discovered if we dare to look beyond the surface of the sacred story? The mystery of the burning bush is not just a story from the past. It is a living question, burning at the heart of every search for meaning. And as the flames flicker in the desert night, we are invited to step closer, to listen, to wonder, to ask, with Moses, "Who are you?" And perhaps, in the asking, to discover a truth that has been hidden in plain sight all along. But the journey has only just begun. Beyond the bush, beyond the voice, lies a world of secrets and shadows, a world where the true God waits to be found, not in thunder or fire, but in the silent depths of the soul. And so, with Moses, we take our first step into the unknown, leaving behind the certainty of tradition for the adventure of the spirit. As the embers of the bush glow in the darkness, a new question arises. If the voice was not what it seemed, what else in the story of Moses might be waiting to be revealed? The path ahead is uncertain, but the promise of hidden wisdom beckons us onward, deeper into the heart of the mystery. The journey through the wilderness is never just a matter of geography. It is a journey of the soul, a pilgrimage through layers of reality, each more mysterious than the last. As Moses steps away from the burning bush, the questions that flickered in the fire refuse to die. Who or what truly spoke to him? What unseen forces shape the world he inhabits? And what is the true nature of the divine? To understand the Gnostic answer, we must first enter their cosmos, a universe alive with spiritual drama where the visible and invisible are locked in an ancient dance. The Gnostics saw the world not as a straightforward creation of a single all-good God, but as a fractured realm, the product of cosmic error and longing. Their stories begin not with the creation of the world, but with the creation of the creators themselves. High above the world of matter, in the pleroma, the fullness of divine light, dwells the true God, infinite, silent, beyond all comprehension. From this source emanate the aeons, luminous beings who express the divine in countless forms. Among them is Sophia, the embodiment of wisdom, whose yearning to know the unknowable sets the cosmic drama in motion. In her quest, Sophia gives birth to a being outside the fullness, a being both powerful and flawed, cut off from the source. This is the demiurge, the architect of the material world. He is not evil in the cartoonish sense, but he is ignorant, unaware of the higher realms from which he ultimately descends. Believing himself to be the only God, he proclaims, "I am God, and there is none beside me." But the Gnostics hear this not as the voice of truth, but as the tragic cry of a being lost in his own reflection, mistaking the echo of the abyss for the voice of eternity. In this light, the story of Moses takes on a new and unsettling dimension. The God who speaks from the bush, who thunders from Sinai, who demands obedience and sacrifice. Could this be the demiurge, mistaking his own power for the fullness of divinity? The Gnostic texts do not answer with a simple yes or no. Instead, they invite us into a deeper questioning, a spiritual wrestling that mirrors the struggles of Moses himself. Imagine Moses, raised in the courts of Pharaoh, educated in the mysteries of Egypt, yet haunted by a sense of exile, not just from his people, but from the truth itself. When he encounters the burning bush, he is not just meeting a god. He is stepping into a cosmic drama that began long before the first stone of Egypt was laid. The voice that calls him is commanding, yes, but is it wise? Is it loving? Or is it perhaps a reflection of the world's own confusion, a God who creates out of loneliness and longing rather than perfect knowledge? The Gnostic vision is not content with easy answers. It recognizes the world as a place of beauty and pain, order and chaos, a world shaped by a creator who is both powerful and limited. but it also insists that within each human soul lies a spark of the true divine, a fragment of the pleroma longing to return to its source. The journey of Moses in this reading is not just the liberation of a people from slavery, but the liberation of the soul from ignorance, from the tyranny of a God who knows only his own shadow. This is the heart of the Gnostic dilemma. Is the lawgiver a liberator or a jailer? Is the covenant a path to freedom or another chain? The Gnostics looked to the figure of Jesus as the revealer of hidden knowledge, the one who comes not to abolish the law, but to awaken the divine spark within. Yet even Moses, they suggest, may have glimpsed the higher reality, may have sensed, in the silence behind the voice, the presence of a greater God waiting to be known. The ancient texts shimmer with hints and riddles. In the Apocryphon of John, the demiurge is described as a lion-faced serpent, a being of fire and pride. In the Pistis Sophia, the journey of the soul is a descent and return, a passage through realms of illusion and awakening. Even in the canonical scriptures, the attentive reader finds traces of a deeper story. The God who hides his face, who speaks in riddles, who demands sacrifice, but also promises mercy. Moses stands at the crossroads of these mysteries. He is both a servant and a seeker, a lawgiver and a wanderer. The Gnostic tradition honors his struggle, seeing in it the drama of every soul, the longing for truth, the fear of deception, the hope that somewhere beyond the burning bush lies a love that does not consume, a wisdom that does not command, but invites. As the journey continues, the questions grow sharper. If the God of the burning bush is not the highest God, then what does it mean to follow his law? What is the purpose of the Exodus if the promised land is not a place but a state of awakening? And what hidden knowledge might Moses have carried with him, unspoken, as he led his people through the wilderness? The wilderness, after all, is not just a place of trial. It is a place of revelation, a place where the soul is stripped bare and the true nature of the divine is glimpsed, if only for a moment. As Moses leads his people onward, the Gnostic vision invites us to look beyond the surface of the story, to seek the deeper truth that burns at its heart. The journey is far from over. Ahead lie forbidden texts, secret teachings and revelations that will challenge everything we thought we knew. The path is winding, the shadows deep, but the promise of hidden wisdom calls us onward, deeper into the mystery that began with a single, unanswerable question: who truly spoke from the burning bush? And as we move forward, the lines between liberator and jailer, law and freedom, God and demiurge, grow ever more blurred. The next chapter beckons, promising secrets that have waited millennia to be revealed. The wilderness is never empty. It is alive with echoes, whispers of stories that have been told and retold, reshaped by every generation that dared to ask, what if? As Moses leads his people through the shifting sands, the Gnostic tradition reminds us that the greatest secrets are often those hidden in plain sight, woven between the lines of familiar stories and buried in texts that were branded heretical, then lost to time. But secrets have a way of surviving. They linger in the margins, in the apocryphal and the forbidden, waiting for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. The Gnostics were masters of this hidden knowledge, gnosis. For them, truth was not something handed down from on high, but something uncovered, layer by layer, through inner revelation and relentless questioning. Imagine for a moment the world of early Christianity and late Judaism, a world teeming with scrolls, gospels, and mystical writings, many of which never made it into the official canon. Here, the story of Moses is not a single, unbroken narrative, but a tapestry of competing voices and visions. Some texts, like the Assumption of Moses, hint at secret prophecies and cosmic battles, painting Moses as a figure far more enigmatic than the lawgiver of Sunday school stories. Others, like the Apocryphon of John, go further still, recasting the entire drama of Exodus as a struggle not just against Pharaoh, but against the very architects of reality. In these Gnostic texts, the God who speaks to Moses is not always the hero. Sometimes he is the demiurge, Yaldabaoth, Saklas, Samael, names that drip with both power and tragedy. He is the lion-faced serpent, the blind God who creates out of ignorance, who mistakes his own voice for the voice of the true divine. He is a jailer as much as a creator, binding souls to the wheel of law and sacrifice, unable to offer the fullness of liberation that only Gnosis can bring. Yet the story is never so simple. For some Gnostics, Moses is not merely a victim of deception, but a proto-Gnostic himself, a man who glimpsed the higher realms and encoded their secrets in the law, hidden beneath layers of ritual and commandment. In the Pistis Sophia, a text revered by many Gnostic sects, Moses appears as a figure who receives mysteries from the true God, passing them on to those who can decipher the code. Even in the canonical scriptures, subtle hints remain. The veiled face of Moses after his encounters with the divine, the hidden manna, the mysterious staff that blossoms with life. The forbidden texts do more than challenge the surface of the story. They invite us to read between the lines, to see the Exodus not just as a historical event, but as an allegory for the soul's journey out of bondage, not from Egypt, but from ignorance. The Red Sea becomes the barrier between illusion and awakening. The wilderness, a crucible where old certainties are burned away, leaving only the longing for the true God, the God beyond the bush. Throughout history, these alternative interpretations were suppressed, their texts burned, their teachers branded as heretics. Yet the questions they raised refused to die. Why does the God of Moses demand sacrifice and obedience, yet remain hidden, speaking in riddles and signs? Why does he declare himself the only God when the very structure of the cosmos suggests otherwise? And what of the hints, scattered through the Psalms, the prophets, even the Torah itself, that there is a wisdom beyond the law, a secret path for those willing to seek? The Gnostic answer is both unsettling and exhilarating. The law is not the end, but the beginning, a set of clues pointing to a deeper reality. The true liberation is not from Pharaoh, but from the demiurge, from the tyranny of external authority and the blindness of the world. The promised land is not a strip of earth, but a state of consciousness, a return to the pleroma, the fullness of divine light. In this vision, Moses becomes a symbol for every seeker, a wanderer who refuses to be satisfied with easy answers, who dares to question even the voice that calls from the fire. The journey through the wilderness is the journey of the soul, a passage through texts and traditions, through faith and doubt, toward a truth that cannot be contained in any book or law. The forbidden texts are not just relics of a lost age. They are living invitations, urging us to look deeper, to question more boldly, to seek the hidden wisdom that lies behind every story. They remind us that the true God is not found in thunder or commandment, but in the quiet whisper within, the spark of gnosis that waits to be awakened. And so the journey continues. The shadows lengthen, the questions multiply, and the promise of revelation grows ever more tantalizing. What if the greatest secret of all is not who spoke to Moses, but what Moses discovered in the silence that followed? What if the true message of the burning bush is not a command, but an invitation to seek, to question, to awaken? Ahead lies a turning point, a twist that will challenge everything we thought we knew. The wilderness is a crucible, and every step Moses takes is a step deeper into paradox. The people follow him, grumbling and hopeful, their eyes fixed on a promise of freedom. Yet, beneath the surface, a greater drama unfolds, a cosmic tension that stretches from the sands of Sinai to the hidden chambers of the soul. The question that once flickered in the flames of the burning bush now burns within the hearts of all who dare to listen. Who really spoke to Moses? As the journey continues, the contradictions become impossible to ignore. The God who claims to be the only one, who demands absolute loyalty, who issues laws etched in stone, also displays moments of jealousy, anger, even regret. He commands the construction of a tabernacle, a place for his presence to dwell, yet warns that to look upon his face is to die. He liberates his people from Egypt, only to bind them with a new set of chains, commandments, rituals, sacrifices, and the endless weight of expectation. For the Gnostics, these are not the marks of the true God, but the fingerprints of the demiurge, a being powerful, yes, but incomplete. The demiurge is a craftsman, a builder of worlds, but he is not the source of all wisdom or compassion. His voice is thunderous, his laws absolute, but his vision is narrow, his knowledge limited. He believes himself to be alone, yet he is surrounded by mysteries he cannot fathom. The ancient texts echo this drama. The Apocryphon of John describes the demiurge as a lion-faced serpent, roaring his supremacy into the void, unaware of the higher realities that surround him. In the Gospel of Philip, the law is called a shadow, a preparation for something greater. Even the canonical scriptures hint at a divided reality. The God who creates light also creates darkness. The God who gives life also brings destruction. Moses stands at the center of this storm. He is the mediator, the one who ascends the mountain and returns with words of fire. But what if his ascent is not just a climb through rock and cloud, but a journey through layers of spiritual authority? What if, on Sinai, Moses encounters not the ultimate God, but a guardian at the threshold, a being who holds the keys to the lower realms, but not the secrets of the highest heaven? The Gnostic dilemma sharpens. Is obedience to such a being true faith, or is it a form of spiritual bondage? The people crave certainty, a clear path, a God who speaks in thunder and flame, but the Gnostic seeker is restless, unsatisfied with easy answers. The voice from the bush may command, but the soul longs for something more, a wisdom that cannot be contained in any law, a love that transcends fear. This tension is not just theological, it is existential. It is the tension between law and grace, between outer authority and inner knowing. The Gnostic tradition insists that the true journey is inward, a turning away from the clamor of commandments to the still, small voice within. The real exodus is not from Egypt, but from ignorance, from the illusion that the demiurge is all there is. Yet the story refuses to resolve into simple oppositions. Some Gnostic texts suggest that Moses, in his deepest moments, glimpsed the higher God, perhaps in the silence that followed the thunder, in the questions that would not be silenced. The wilderness becomes a place of testing, not just for the people, but for Moses himself. Will he settle for the law of the demiurge, or will he seek the hidden face of the true God? The stakes could not be higher. If the God of Moses is not the highest God, then the entire edifice of tradition trembles. What then is the purpose of the law? What is the meaning of covenant, of chosenness, of the promised land? The Gnostic answer is both radical and liberating. The law is a guide, a shadow, a set of signposts pointing beyond itself. The true covenant is not with a jealous God, but with the divine spark within, the fragment of the pleroma that waits to be awakened. This is the turning point, the moment when the familiar story splits open to reveal its hidden heart. The wilderness is no longer just a backdrop for ancient miracles. It is the landscape of the soul, where every seeker must confront the limits of authority and the possibility of awakening. The voice from the bush may be loud, but the real revelation waits in the silence, in the questions that refuse to be answered. As the journey reaches its peak, the tension between law and gnosis, between demiurge and true God, becomes unbearable. The people demand certainty, but the seeker knows that certainty is the enemy of wisdom. The path ahead is shrouded in mystery, yet the promise of hidden knowledge beckons. The next step will change everything. The time has come for revelation, for the unveiling of secrets that have been guarded for millennia, for the discovery of a truth that can set the soul free. The wilderness is almost behind us, but the real journey is about to begin. The wilderness falls behind, but the questions it raised echo louder than ever. The people stand at the edge of the promised land, their journey nearly complete, yet the true destination remains unseen, hidden not in geography, but in the depths of spirit. The story of Moses, so familiar on the surface, now shimmers with new meaning, transformed by the Gnostic lens. The burning bush, the thunder of Sinai, the law written in stone, all of it now points to a mystery far greater than the journey from Egypt to Canaan. Here, at the threshold, the final revelation dawns. The voice that spoke from the bush, the voice that shaped a nation, is revealed not as the voice of the highest God, but as a veil, a necessary mask, a cosmic riddle. The Gnostics do not dismiss the journey of Moses, nor do they scorn the law he delivered. Instead, they see in his story the drama of every soul, the longing for truth, the struggle with authority, the yearning for a wisdom that cannot be commanded, only discovered. The law, so often seen as the end point, becomes in this light a beginning, a set of clues, a scaffolding for the soul's ascent. The commandments are not chains, but signposts, pointing beyond themselves to a freedom that no law can grant. The true exodus is not from Pharaoh, but from the tyranny of ignorance, from the illusion that the voice of the demiurge is the final word. Moses himself, in the Gnostic imagination, is transformed. No longer merely a lawgiver, he becomes a wanderer between worlds, a man who glimpsed the higher realms, who tasted the silence behind the thunder. The veiling of his face, the mysteries he carried in his heart, all hint at secrets too great for words. Perhaps, in the end, Moses was not deceived, but awakened, aware that the God who spoke to him was not the highest, yet willing to lead his people as far as he could, trusting that the rest of the journey belonged to each soul alone. The forbidden texts, once hidden and suppressed, now stand as witnesses to this deeper truth. They remind us that the story of Moses is not a closed book, but a living invitation, a call to seek, to question, to awaken. The Gnostic path is not for the faint of heart. It demands courage, humility, and a willingness to let go of certainty. Yet it promises a reward greater than any earthly land, the rediscovery of the divine spark, the return to the pleroma, the fullness of light from which all souls descend. As the narrative draws to a close, the implications ripple outward. What if the voice that spoke to Moses was not the end, but the beginning? What if every law, every commandment, every miracle is a doorway to a deeper mystery? The Gnostics urge us to look within, to listen for the silent voice that calls us home, not to a place, but to a state of being, a union with the true God beyond all names and forms. The journey of Moses is the journey of every seeker. It is the courage to question, the humility to doubt, the faith to keep walking when the path is hidden. The wilderness is not a punishment, but a gift, a place where the soul is stripped bare, where the true voice can finally be heard. And so the story ends, but only on the surface. The real journey continues in every heart that dares to ask who truly spoke to Moses. In every soul that listens for the whisper behind the thunder, the light behind the fire, the truth beyond the law. The Gnostic revelation is not a final answer, but an invitation, a call to seek, to wonder, to awaken. Perhaps in the end, the greatest secret is this: the divine is not found in the voice that commands, but in the silence that invites. The burning bush still burns, the wilderness still calls, And the true promised land waits, not at the end of the journey, but at its very heart. What if the story of Moses was never about a man who heard God, but about a people, about all of us, learning to hear the divine for ourselves? The question lingers, unresolved, as the sun sets over the ancient sands and the mystery deepens with the coming night.